Hey everyone, it's Haley. So good to reconnect. We got some fire burning, we got a crown in honor of today's video, getting kind of crazy. So we're gonna talk about the Leo new moon today, which is gonna go exact in the early morning on August 4th. Very exciting. Love that kind of injection of that like regal energy, kind of inviting us to be seen. If we have Aquarius placements like myself, this can be kind of hard. And it's been, especially because this is going to be the first Leo season in all of our lifetimes that we've had Pluto in the early degrees of Aquarius. So all of the personal planets as they move through the sign of Leo are going to be opposing Pluto, which might be a little tricky, coming up against that kind of like inner critic or harsh kind of authoritarian inner figure that kind of makes us feel kind of like shame when we kind of show up in a way where others could critique us if we kind of shine too brightly, so to speak. So being really conscious around this time of the ways that you kind of stamp out your own inner flame or inner light because it doesn't feel safe to, and just kind of challenging that and kind of questioning if that's like an updated current understanding of our actual reality. Yeah, so in this video, we're going to talk about the Leo new moon, also pull some tarot cards. So let's get into it. So when I was looking at this chart, it really reminds me of, if you're familiar with the Strength card in the tarot, which is a woman and a lion, kind of that imagery of kind of taming, resurrecting, alchemizing something really difficult, and just kind of choosing this kind of like inner strength way of not tolerating old things and kind of asking this question, why not me, as we approach this lunation, especially is because we've had 2 Capricorn full moons in the month of July, or I guess the first was the end of June, but this summer we've had a lot of confronting energy come up amidst a lot of lighter, more fun energy, especially compared to the last few years. But this kind of, we can take these realizations and kind of use the momentum of this lunation to kind of feel this influx of confidence, this kind of charismatic energy of just kind of like generating good luck, just by virtue of putting one foot in front of the other and kind of using this momentum, moving forward, taking steps, and kind of using this, just kind of like riding the wind of this lunation. So we have a huge first house stellium in this new moon chart. I can't take myself seriously with these little things dangling. It's so funny. Okay, so anyway, so we have the sun and the moon conjunct at 12 degrees of Leo, and then also the ascendant is in Leo. So we have a triple Leo new moon, lots of Leo energy. A really fun time to just kind of experiment with, I don't know, being a little more sparkly in your social encounters. In addition to the sun, moon, and rising, we also have Venus at the anaretic, the last degree, 29 degrees of Leo, as well as Vesta, the kind of, if you're familiar with the mythology around Vesta and her, the priestesses that served her in ancient Greece, and kind of the way that they tended the sacred flame, the hearth, and the way that that kind of flame reflected this, like the state as a whole. And it was kind of like and there's also this mythology around they had to be virgins and they were guarding the flame of the city. So there's, I don't know, maybe this might be a little bit of a just kind of, I don't know, spitballing, but we may see some sort of stuff in the collective around female figures taking power. I do know that, Joe Biden just announced he'd be stepping down, and then, the potential for female figures to kind of be emerging more in the public sphere and politics, but then also the kind of push and pull of like the Pluto and Leo generation, which we refer to as the baby boomers, kind of having this experience of Pluto opposing their personal Pluto, and this kind of tug for power, but this emergence of more strong feminine energy within men, but also within women, in terms of taking up more space. And again, asking this question, why not me, is really helpful, especially because the lunation is going to be forming a sextile, which is a 60-degree kind of very positive, harmonious aspect to both the planets Jupiter and Mars, which are approaching their conjunction in the sign of Gemini. So again, this kind of like very confident, very kind of combustible, but like in a good way that we're making breakthroughs, a good time to be like kind of networking, being around friends, and I guess the more negative side of this is, you know, potentially running a little more hot-headed, which can produce some kind of conflicts, but also really like constructive, producing a lot of momentum moving forward. So I really like this energy, but also this kind of push and pull, because I was looking at some of these specific Sabian symbols that are where some important planets are placed in this chart, and a lot of them have to do with this kind of like straddling the past versus the now, and kind of maybe thinking the best things are behind us. So just kind of being aware, especially coming out of Cancer season pretty freshly, just the way nostalgia can kind of like weigh us down, or think that this like kind of stasis place where we're just kind of still and idle, which is good when it's restful, but then it can become kind of like destructive after a while. So being aware of maybe finding ourselves on the outside looking into things, kind of feeling excluded, or like there's, you know, we have Saturn and Neptune both currently retrograde and in this chart in the 8th house. So it's kind of like murky energy, and like, it's not to say everything is going to be like sunshine and rainbows. Like there's obviously kind of, I don't know if it's ever going to go away, but like this kind of heavier feeling, but there's also this like really healthy optimism and self-belief and confidence to kind of forge a path and kind of prioritize that in terms of where we're heading. Yeah, so fun. I think we're gonna turn to the tarot now to get some more messages. Yeah, but feel free as always to comment, start a conversation about how you're feeling this Leo energy. Oh, and I forgot to also say that the new moon is on the 4th and Lionsgate is on the 8th, which I'm not too familiar with the actual astronomical configuration, but to my knowledge, there's something with the Earth and I think the fixed stars Sirius and Orion kind of aligning with the zodiac of Leo, and it's, people talk about it being a very potent, energizing time to kind of capture that leonine energy of like just totally stepping into a new timeline and very potent energy. So if you're into that, that's something for you to look into. Okay, so thank you. Spirit, what are some of the things that you can tell us about our collective experience with this Leo new moon? What are some of the archetypal signatures, some of the archetypes that we might see in our personal and collective experience? This Leo new moon. What are some of the images that are working with us? Thank you. Great. Yeah, it's like a lot of fresh beginnings and this kind of meeting the right people. Okay, we have the Lovers and we have the Two of Cups. Interesting, we'll get a few more. Is Leo, what is the potential, the highest potential for us as individuals? Okay, I love to see the star. Beautiful. Okay, the Magician reversed. Okay, this is what I was thinking about when I was picturing this. Okay. Getting really clear on where we want to direct our energy, where it's worth it, seems really important. Reevaluating with Mercury in the 2nd house in Virgo, the systems of our worth, re-evaluating those and questioning them and thinking about if the things that feel like just kind of like optics, like we feel like we need to do them in order to get respect or have kind of like a high level of status or worth, but they're actually like the 10 of Wands, exhausting. Like all this fire energy is very purifying and clarifying, and letting us see kind of alchemically with the Magician, like what is worth it, and this kind of inner, with the Lovers cards, and as well as the Two of Cups, this kind of doubling energy, which a lot of the times has to do with sort of inner processes, and can be reflected externally in relationships, but also really being in alignment with the things that we're desiring moving forward, and then kind of putting our energy there in kind of this new beginning of this kind of project of, with the first house, a lot of times it has to do with self, like pretty straightforward kind of understandings of how we understand ourselves, how we, like our identity. Let's see. Yeah, so the Three of Swords, this is what I was kind of feeling with that kind of heavier energy. Obviously it looks pretty intense, but this is just kind of this, again, this kind of reminds me of Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, really, of this kind of like all of the times in the past where we were kind of clipped in ways when we were children, weren't allowed, or were kind of shamed for having dreams or wanting to kind of have this thing that we tend to nurture, which I know this sounds kind of vague, but we'll try to get some more specific messages. But yeah, the ways that we've been cut down in the past, really, with the Six of Wands in the reverse position, the ways that we've been taken off pedestals because we weren't perfect, the kind of way that we as a culture have a tendency to, like I said, really put people up really high and then knock them down further, for being successful or being happy. That's a big thing. And just that core wound of, so this is interesting. I don't normally read this card like this. The Six of Pentacles is kind of, you know, this kind of charity card, giving alms. But in this context, with the Six of Wands in the reverse position, it's making me think about the ways that we're cut down by not belittling ourselves, if that makes sense, by choosing not to be self-deprecating. Sometimes people really like that. It can be kind of a source of bonding to kind of mutually tear ourselves down, and which can be, you know, being the ways that we think we need to be humble by being self-deprecating and self-destructive, really. The ways that we kind of bond over our mutual self-sabotage, which is an interesting message. Yeah, and the ways that that is in some ways more socially attractive than the more like being in harmony, cohesion with yourself, and being honest about what you dream, especially with Mars and Jupiter in the 11th house, which is a lot of times in astrology considered the house of wishes and dreams. And the star is kind of a dream fulfillment card. Like, the dreams are possible, but just sometimes speaking them aloud kind of comes with this social kind of thing around, oh, you can have that, but not that. Like, if you know what I mean, you can have a version of that that's okay for me in my current construct of what's possible. But if you reach for something more and it's 1 degree off of what I've kind of led myself to believe is possible for myself, it starts to feel threatening. So I need to cut you down because what you want is too big, if that makes sense. But the ways that keeping up that social dance is exhausting. And it's kind of this period of like, okay, why not step into what I see for myself? And the ways that is not necessarily, it's not selfish, because again, it's kind of like in this interdependent, networked understanding of reality. When we are more resourced, we have more to give and outpour, that whole thing, which we don't have to go through that, like, ooh, having an overflowing cup metaphor, because that is, whew, overused, but it's true, like all cliches, there's a lot of truth in that. And the Magician, so in the upright position, this figure has all of the suits with him. He has the cup, the sword, the wand, as well as, what's the last one? The pentacle. So metaphorically having all of the resources available to you. But in the reversed, especially with the Lovers, we can get kind of stuck in projections and a lot of confusion, and like, what are we actually building towards? And what is this thing? At this new moon, oh my god, was that English? Lunation or new moon, either, you can use either one. With this new moon, it's really important to have that clarity, because this is a new beginning with the Page of Pentacles. But it might just be first, before it's kind of like, these are my goals in the external world, and this is the house and the the projects and like whatever that I'm building towards, first it's going to be an inner purification process and an inner kind of clarification of this kind of inner union of these two like what maybe, so just watching for doubling. So how can I as an adult support my child self as we realize that new things are possible that weren't possible in the past but are now possible because we're here in the now and we're not then anymore. And then also the double of, can the part of me that's really afraid of being seen and the part of me that kind of wants to shrink and play small, can that part kind of partner and kind of come together in this kind of reconciliation process with the part of me that is current and that is ready to meet the world and kind of realize that I have gifts to give, and that playing small, again, it's a cliche, but it's not helping anyone. It really isn't. Maybe it's pacifying or sustaining relationships that were never built on much kind of like mutually enforcing positivity. Maybe they were just kind of always shallow connections that were kind of toxic, but then kind of recognizing that as this inner process of revivification, is that a word? Of hope, this kind of recognition that new things are possible with this, again, Mars and Jupiter and Gemini. This is like very fast moving energy. We could see ourselves making kind of quantum leaps at this time if we kind of make space for that and allow that in. So this kind of, jumping timelines, once we kind of align ourselves with, we admit to ourselves what we want, that's huge with Mercury in Virgo. Great ways to do that are journaling, stream of consciousness, voice dictating conversations, like what do I, just getting really clear, or especially around, the energetics of, I want this because I want this to make me feel this way, and because I see it aligning with this authentic part of myself in this way, and I can see it helping my community in these ways. Like, it's not fully I think we really have the idea of selfish very twisted in terms of being congruent and being rooted in the self is different than the kind of what we label as like superfluous or vain, or being kind of, revisiting what luxury means too. I feel like that's really big. Like, what feels luxurious to you? It could be very simple things like sitting with my coffee in the morning and listening to a podcast, or going for a walk, or putting my feet on the ground. Like, it can be very simple things, but kind of re-energizing our lives by virtue of admitting to ourselves what feels good and what we want, which is simple, but again, with this whole, programming, purity culture thing, can be hard to admit what we want. So I think those are all the messages that are coming through. So lovely to chat, so much fun. Hopefully, if I can stick to it, I'll be back for the Aquarius full moon in just a few weeks. And so lots of love and have a great day.